I'm going to be giving you impressions of how to use this, and if you can't see the specifics, you're going to want to read the documentation or ask questions. So I have already brought up APT 2025.5.3. What version do you need to use? Well, the version that was released for the Cycle 5 call was APT 2025.5.2, but we've already needed to make one fix. And if that fix affects you, then you would want to use this version. Otherwise, you can use the one you originally downloaded, 2025.5.2. But you may wonder, what's new? And the What's New button is sensitive to what kind of proposal you're working on. So if you have an HST proposal loaded, it would answer what's new for HST. And if you have a JWST proposal loaded, it will answer what's new for JWST. So I'm going to load my demo proposal, and I can go to File, Open Recent, and pick the demo proposal that I wrote for this purpose. And now, when I click on What's New, it's loading the documentation of the release notes, the compiled, going back several years, release notes for JWST, and we can see that APT 2025.5.3 was released on September 3rd and includes a fix for the new MIRI WFSS template. So if you're not using that, you don't need to get the newer version. You can, you just don't need to. And I am going to use the release notes for 2025.5.2 as my guide for what I'm demoing, because this is mostly a demo of what's new. It's not a complete demo of how to use APT. It's mostly what's new. So I'm going to step through. And so the first item is how to signify that your proposal is a Roman preparatory science initiative. And I'm going to go back to showing APT. And so if you wanted that, you would click this box, Roman preparatory science, done. Next item is how to indicate that you would like to propose for the long-term monitoring initiative. Let's go back to APT. Now, this is the existing capability. If you come down to future cycles and click that, it allows you to say how much time you would like in the next cycle, i.e. cycle 6, and in the cycle +2, cycle 7. But if you have an idea that requires more, 3 additional or 4 additional cycles, you'll want to click the long-term monitoring checkbox. And now you can see that future cycles lists a spot for you to say how much time in cycle 8 and 9. Okay. The next is how you would specify that you wanted to take advantage of the new JWST TESS joint observation capability. For any telescope that you would like to propose more than one telescope, you click the multi-observatory button, and then immediately you are asked whether JWST is the primary or secondary proposal. So in this case, we'd click primary, and then it lists all the telescopes that we have agreements with and the units that they like to specify their time in. And with respect to TESS, it's targets. So if we wanted to say that we were going to request 15 TESS targets to complement this proposal, that's where you would type it in. And the last update on this front page has to do with the science category and the science keywords. If you are reusing an existing proposal that was for the exoplanet system formation and dynamics, that panel has been renamed exoplanetary system formation and dynamics. And so at first, it will complain that it's never heard of that panel, and you'll take it out and you'll add this one back in, and all will be well. Most important change is that there's a different number of science keywords required. So in the past, when you selected a single panel, you were given the option of specifying 5 keywords, and you were supposed to choose at least 2. Now you're going to be required to give 3 and up to 10, and you are encouraged to give as many as possible because that really helps them find people to review your program that are well suited to. So you notice I've gotten rid of the red X by specifying 3 science keywords there. And I'll also note all along that in these What's New, there are links to documentation appropriate for that item. So you can click on that and it opens up the appropriate documentation. Okay. The first more sciencey topic is the change in the name for the ETC connection. If you bring up an observation, I think this one, yeah, there is a spot for indicating the ETC run that you used in order to come up with your exposure parameters. And it used to feel required. People felt, even though it didn't say it was required, it kind of felt required. And we're trying to encourage people to take advantage of it if it's a nice place to note your ETC run ID. And you can even use this button to bring it open if you've put the ID in there, but it's optional. So we've renamed the field optional to make that crystal clear. And you'll notice there's not even any warning that you haven't filled it out. This is what a warning looks like, that little yellow triangle, and this is what an error looks like, the red X. And there is no warning or error here. But in the case of a target acquisition, we do provide a warning, still not required, but if you look at your warning, it says observers are responsible for checking that the target acquisition is feasible. We know that there are other ways of checking besides running the ETC, but we are reminding you that this is really critical, that you have done something to prove to yourself that this is going to be a successful target acquisition. And so that's the purpose of this warning. It's not requiring, and the TAC is not going to see this, so don't worry that the TAC is going to see this warning and think you didn't do the right thing. Okay. The new moving target shadow requirement, I will demonstrate, but I also emphasize, because there was a question in the chat, that there is documentation. I will show you 2 ways to see that documentation. One is by clicking on the link in the What's New, and the other is in APT. So the first thing I'm going to show you is that in my demo proposal, I have a moving target, and I have an observation that I have specified to view that target. And inside of that observation, you can see that there's 1 visit. And the reason I'm emphasizing this is that these things will change as a result of choosing this new special requirement. So I'm going to the Special Requirements tab. I am adding a special requirement, and I'm going to add the moving target shadow. And the only thing that you have to decide on is the minimum interval. And this is the time period over which your object will move far enough away that it will be outside of the aperture of your instrument so that your shadow observation is taken when your target has moved completely on. So the default is 10 days, and if you're happy with that, you can just say okay. And now you have the special requirement specified, and APT has automatically done the following things. It has created a second target for you called the shadow target, and it has created a second visit for you that is the shadow visit. And so there's the first visit is your science visit, and the second visit is your shadow visit. And you may want to know a little more than what I just told you. In the documentation, you can find by clicking. This is true in general, but I'm just demonstrating it here. We have something in APT called context-sensitive help. And if any field appears in dark blue, and you put your cursor over it and it turns into a question mark, that allows you to click there, and it pops you to the right part of the documentation. So this was the second way to learn more about moving target shadow observations, is by using context-sensitive help. The other way was to use the link in the What's New. The next item is the new MIRI Wide Field Slitless Spectroscopy template. It's a brand new template, and it's very similar to the NIRCam and NIRISS WFSS templates if you've already used those. So I'm going to click over to my partially filled out MIRI WFSS template. It's a little complicated, so I'm going to show that we have, I'm in the special requirements tab right now, which is why I confused myself and maybe some of you. I need to go back to the tab with the features of this template. Okay, I have already filled in the dither that I want and the first science exposure that I want, but there's still red X's, and that's because I haven't indicated the parameters for the direct images that will be taken to complement the science observation. I don't get to specify my readout pattern because that is automatically populated from the readout pattern of my first observation, but I do have to choose my filter and my groups. Oops, that's too many. I'll go for 5. And my integrations. Now all the red X's have gone away, and this mysterious table down here has been populated. That is trying to show you a time-ordered sequence of events. Now that you've specified what direct images you would like to complement that science observation, it shows you that first you get a direct image, then you get your science image, then you get another direct image. And it also gives you all these details, such as how many dithers occurred. And that's helpful because there is an option with direct images to choose 2 extra dithers, and that puts 2 extra dithers in the set of direct observations that occur at the end. And if you add additional science observations up here, then the specification for the direct image pops down here, and the little sandwich of direct, science, and direct appears down here. So that's the general way that a WFSS template works, even for the other 2 instruments. There are 4 new multi-stripe subarrays for use with the NIRISS SOS template. And there's also a new field for allowing you to specify the number of exposures. And I'm going to demonstrate that. Okay, this is mostly filled out nearest SOS observation, but I have not specified one of the new subarrays. These are the 4 new subarrays that are available. And I made the exposures per dither be 0, so it would give me a red X to remind me to come and show you that this is where you would say if you wanted 2 exposures like that back to back instead of just 1. That's where you would do it. So those are the 2 changes to the nearest SOS template. And there is a new option for coordinated parallel observing between NearSpec IFU and NearCam imaging. So I have pre-specified a NearSpec IFU spectroscopy observation here. And the question is, how do you specify that you want NearCam imaging to be in parallel? There is a checkbox here just below your template where you say, this is a coordinated parallel. And after you've clicked that, you get a pop-up for which combination you would like. And in this case, there's just one. NearSpec IFU can only be paired with NearCam imaging. So there's just one to choose. And you notice down here, it kind of rearranged itself. And that's because an additional tab has popped up for the NearCam imaging parameters. So we are now specifying just the NearCam imaging parameters. I'm going to say module B, subarray sub 640. I'm going to add a filter. I'm going to choose a short filter, a long filter, a readout pattern, a number of groups, a number of ints. And now I have a fully specified NearCam imaging observation that will be done in parallel to this IFU observation. If I added another observation under the IFU, when I come back here, I have the option to add a second NearCam imaging observation that would be in parallel to this one. Okay, and while those are all of the things that were differences that we were highlighting for this most major release in August, there was a release last November after the cycle 4 deadline that have some items that you might be interested in. I'm going to highlight a couple of them. The submission pop-up looks different. And if you've been submitting with APT for a while, it might take you aback. So I'm just going to show you what it looks like. When everything's done and you've answered all the red X's and you've run this through the visit planner to make sure it's schedulable, you can go to the submission tool. And I'm going to take it out of test submission mode. I'm a tester. I'm going to click the submit proposal and I'm going to get a pop-up. And the pop-up is telling me things that I'm used to seeing. Down here, you're probably used to this. It's telling me I haven't run smart accounting. That's what happens when you run the visit planner. And it's telling me that I've got 37 errors and warnings. And this is the place that I would explain those before I submit. explain why those 37 errors were just fine. But this is the new section up here. I wanted to make sure it didn't overwhelm you. These questions used to be asked of you in an email response to your submission. And we decided that that was confusing and you might not even see that email. So we're making sure that you thought about specifying in the APT file that you had a custom time allocation, that you had time in future cycles, and that you want to partner with another observatory, such as TESS. These are all things that you might not get, even though you talk about it in your attachment, if you haven't specified it in APT. So we felt it was important to emphasize, please go back and double check that you've checked the right boxes in APT. And you have the opportunity to either say, yes, I filled in the corresponding boxes, or no, my proposal does not have any of these requests. And you won't have to answer that question again. And there are two more I want to show you. NIRCam medium deep readout patterns. And I can do that using my parallel NIRCam. The readout now has, I'm going to make this a little larger. You may not realize you can resize these to read them better. There are two new readout patterns for NIRCam called Medium Deep 2 and 8. There's support for NIRCam's dispersed Hartmann sensor grisms that started during cycle 4, but they are available to propose for this time. So demonstrate that. Okay, the important question, the new field, in order to use the DHS is to say that the shortwave channel mode is no longer imaging, but is going to be GRISM. When you have chosen GRISM, then you can choose a subarray that is appropriate. And in the short pupil plus filter field, you'll notice that the short pupil is now the DHS pupil for all the options. And the readout patterns include 5 new readout patterns that are special for the DHS. So that's a fully specified DHS observation. And that's all for the new things. I was going to emphasize before I go that I am the APT Help Desk. When you write to the APT Help Desk, either by going to the portal and selecting that you want help from APT, or one of these other ways I show you, you're going to get me, unless I happen to be sick that day. And if I don't know the answer, I'll get help from somebody else, and you'll hear back from me probably within a day or two, maybe even faster if it's an easy question. I will show you 2 quick ways to write to the APT Help Desk beyond going through the portal. One is clicking on the feedback button in APT. This sets up an email to apt@stsci.edu. This is a quick cheat to write to the APT Help Desk, and we set it up in order to be able to make this feedback button. But you can use it directly if you want to. The feedback button reminds you that you may want to include your APT file when asking the question, if your question might have something to do with the content of the proposal. It takes a lot longer if I have to write back to you and say, can you give me your proposal? Because I'm not going to write a test proposal from your description of what you're doing. I really need to see a little toy version of what's causing the problem. And if you had a failure of APT, you can go get your most recent log file. And if you go get that and attach it, then if there's a failure, I might be able to discern what the failure was from the log file. So this tells you, this is on my disk, but it'll tell you on your disk where to look for log files. So, quick cheat, if you're going to ask a question at the APT help desk because you're having a failure or a bug or something like that, go ahead and go through the portal. Portal's helpful, but if you want to use the APT direct email, that is fine too, and it is available for you under the feedback button. And another useful thing over here in this corner with your what's new that we just walked through is the roadmap button. And that goes into one of the articles in the call for proposals, which tells you how to get started. And it's really just a quick start with some links if you've never proposed with JWST before.